Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Cynthia James, who's here to share with us her new book, Does My Voice Matter? A journey of self-discovery, authenticity, and empowerment. So Cynthia is a transformational specialist and one of today's brightest and best loved inspirational leaders and teachers guiding thousands of people to make changes at deep levels for lasting healing in their lives. Whether coaching, speaking, or teaching, Cynthia invites participants into inquiry, introspection, and integration. She also has completed 2 master degree programs, one in consciousness studies from the Holmes Institute, where she was awarded the honor of distinguished alumni, and the other in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica. Now, Cynthia has appeared in movies, The Sacred Journey of the Heart and Leap. She has facilitated hundreds of workshops, seminars, and keynote speeches, including Celebrate Your Life, Omega Institute, Woman Arising, The Gift and Shift, and Colorado Behavioral Healthcare Council. So welcome to the show, Cynthia James.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you, Marianne.
Oh my goodness. I love the last talk we had. I'm so excited we get to do this again. I've got to ask, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I've been on this planet for 7 decades, and it's taken me quite a lot of time to find my voice, to find my authenticity. And with all the people that I coach around the world and all the companies that I work with, that theme kept coming up. How do I find my voice? How do I bring my gifts? How do I stand in my power? How do I bring my authenticity? And so I thought, well, I can write a book about my journey and the things I've learned to see if it can support other people in doing the same.
Well, I'm so glad you wrote the book. I felt real inspired by it. You just share so much of your story, and I cannot believe you've been here 7 decades. You look like you're in your early 50s,
Thank you.
Yes, but it's not just in physical appearance, it's also in spirit, because you just have this love for life.
Yeah, I do. I'm very grateful. I remember one time walking down the road, and we live in the mountains, and I had this energy go over me, and it felt like, wow, I've been gifted to be in this body. I've been gifted to have this life on the planet, to experience thoughts, word, deeds, actions, all kinds of things. It's a gift. And so I feel like every moment, every morning I wake up, everything I experience, even the things I don't love, are part of the gift of being human.
A lot of times we just take that for granted instead of really looking at all the gifts we do have.
Absolutely.
I love in your book how you start with chapter 1, born into a broken system. And I think a lot of people can really relate with that. Can you share about that with us?
Yeah. So I was born into a system and a time when people of color were struggling. We were on welfare. There was a lot of addiction in our community. My biological father was an alcoholic. My stepfather was a pedophile and a wife beater. And the whole concept of struggle was the thread that ran through the community. And as I started looking at, even every decade of my life, there were always kinds of things that felt like broken systems, whether it was education, whether it was working for companies, whether it was child support systems. People were struggling, or politics, people were struggling to get out of the broken systems because we were all looking for a place to feel safe. We were all looking for a place to feel like there were advantages available, that there was access to a different life in a better world. And so I wanted to talk about that because the only thing that saved me in that part of my life was that I was a dreamer. and I would dream being beyond the system that I was living in.
I love that. I think that part really is so important for people, just to hold on to their dreams, because just like it was the year you were born, it seems like a lot of people even now are kind of in this survival mode.
Oh, completely. And people don't know where to go to get the assistance, you know? I mean, our child support system where we're supposed to be taking care of children is broken, and foster homes aren't working, and institutions for kids aren't working. You know, the places where in work environments where people want to grow and expand, they feel like they've hit ceilings and they don't know how to move beyond it. I mean, I just feel like we're all wanting a chance to be bright, to shine, and to bring our gifts. And there seem to be many roadblocks all along the way.
Yes, it seems that in many, just from one generation to another, we get to this point where we feel so disconnected from humanity.
Yeah. And we forget that we all want the same things, you know? We all want to feel loved. We all want to feel supported. We all want to feel like we've got a chance to be our best selves and live our best life.
I think that's all that we could really ask for, is to, in our authentic self, bring our gifts to the table and just enjoy life, regardless what that looks like. We all don't have to have $10 billion or drive a fancy sports car, all those, there's nothing wrong with those things, but it just to really appreciate where we're at.
Yeah. And to realize that where you're at in the moment is only the moment. You have the potential within you to create something new if what's happening doesn't work for you. You have the potential within you to create a new life, or to make a different choice, or to step through another portal of possibility.
In your first chapter, you have these exercises that you have people do. And I was so impressed with this, because you talk about for people to, let's explore your childhood and see what beliefs you've been holding on to. And it's interesting. I don't think a lot of people think about that.
Well, no, I mean, and listen, your environment, your familial structure, the culture, the political atmosphere, all of that is influencing you, whether you realize it or not. And so I wanted people to just pause and look at, okay, where did I come from and how did it influence me? And am I still operating from the old paradigms and the old belief systems and the old structures? Or have I moved beyond that? I mean, because if you've moved beyond it, I mean, that's a time of celebration. That's a time to look and go, oh, look what I've done to change. And, ooh, is there something more?
It's all about that something more. Yeah, because you hear about families where they label children. It's like, oh, this is the smart one, and this one, well, she might be pretty, but she can't do much, or he's a football player. So children start finding themselves in these categories that maybe, I mean, more likely doesn't suit them.
Well, yeah, and we're not really taught about the different brain types that we have. That we all grow at different rates. We all have different ways of thinking and seeing and perceiving. And a lot of times, children have been judged on fitting inside of a container. I was teaching a class the other day, and the student in the class said, I always felt like I was in a box. I always felt like they didn't see me, because they wanted her to look a certain way and be a certain way. But, we're all individual imprints. We all come here with different identities and ways of being and ways of thinking and ways of creating. And if we get put in a box, then a lot of times we will stay in there to feel loved or validated or whatever the case may be. But there's something else inside that is going, no, this is not who I am. This is not who I've come here to be.
You often hear of parents telling, at least it was in my generation, and I believe in prior generations too, where they talk about children should be seen, not heard.
Yeah.
So from an early age, they're telling you don't say anything.
Well, yeah. And why would the universe put you on the planet and then tell you to shut up? It
I have
makes no
no
sense to
idea.
me.
Yeah. I mean, looking back, I'm like, that's just crazy. But so many people go through that, and it's interesting. When I was reading your book, it made me realize there's probably people who are still kind of operating from some of those learned behaviors from their family.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, are still working the same kind of structures. It's like, I need to do more to be loved. I need to give more to be loved. I need to pull my energy back so that people don't think I'm too much. I get to try to go in there and fix everything so that people will feel safe. And all that from the childhood, when people aren't even asking for that in their lives, but they've been so trained that they're just operating, like there is no opportunity to do anything else. They're on autopilot.
Do you find that people have a hard time dreaming about what their future could look like?
I do. And here's the thing, our culture tells us be practical. Our culture tells us create security. Our culture tells us don't rock the boat. Don't be too much. Don't be too loud. So in the midst of all that information, we are creatives. We're all creative. We create differently, but we're all creatives. And so those dreams are coming forward. It's like, well, how about if we go out here and write this book? Or how about if we start this program? Or how about if we go for this job? How about if we travel to this place? And so those two things are like rubbing up against each other because the messages from the culture are not in alignment with the dreams, because the dreams are telling us, oh, no. All games are off. You get to play big. You get to bring your voice. You get to take risks, and you get to leap and do leaps of faith and let the net catch you.
I love that. I love that. And do you feel like it's sometimes the family voices that kind of creep in that bring all that doubt?
Oh my goodness, yeah. My family's whole thing was we're going to the poorhouse, and nobody could tell us where it was or what it looked like, but we were all going there. So life was going to be a struggle, and we were going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul, and bills are going to pile up, and you were going to have to work two jobs in order to take care. I mean, the whole thing. And so I watched myself be a fulfilled prophecy of that stuff as I was growing up. Because if your belief structure says you have to struggle, so be it. And at one point I thought, well, what if this isn't true? What if I can be abundant? What if I can do what I love and create prosperity? What if I can? And that what if question began the opportunity for me to start exploring, let me try this. Let me learn this. Let me read this book. Let me take this workshop.
I just love that because it really asks people to, open up their creativity and their curiosity.
Yeah. And you know what? Curiosity is an extraordinary thing because it always has you questioning and looking and wanting to know more, wanting to see more, wanting to understand more. When I coach leaders, I tell them curiosity is your friend. Let's be curious about what your employees can bring. Be curious about what's the next thing that you can create. Be curious about what you can do to support your clients in a way that hasn't been done before.
Do you feel that when there's a healing or an investigation into, these things that keep us stuck, that it also affects us collectively?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I know this sounds trite, but it's like if one heals, some part of all of us heals. If when you look at some of the people that have inspired us through the ages, the Gandhi and the Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, different people, you know, you start seeing that every time there was a win, every time that they did something that was inspirational, the voice in you said, oh, maybe I can. Oh, maybe there's something in me that wants to be birthed that way. Because the truth is we're all interconnected. And so if one hurts, we all hurt. If one heals, we all heal. If one expands, we all expand on some level. If we could consciously understand that, then we wouldn't have the need to be at odds on so many levels.
It seems that when you were a child, there was just a lot that was expected of you. How did you feel about that?
Oh, it was difficult. My biological father left right after I was born. My stepfather, my mother, my uncle came and rescued us when I was 6. And so my mother was working 2 jobs, and I was helping her take care of my little brother. I mean, it was like I became an adult when I was still a kid. And there was a part of me that was, I don't even know if the word is resentful, but it was like, how come I can't play like other kids? How come I have to work so hard? How come I have to be so responsible? So what I started doing was I started finding ways to be visible in school. I was on the debate team, and I was on the chess team, and I was secretary of my class, and I was excelling in my schoolwork because it got me out of the house and having to do so many responsible things and carry the weight of adulthood before I was there.
That's a lot for a young person to carry and to manage, but to do that and also then go to school and excel. I mean, how extraordinary is that?
Well, you know what? I'm very grateful that I had that kind of a personality, because some of the people I grew up with, that wasn't their course. But I think I came on this planet to bring my voice in different ways. And my mother was really clear that education was an exit strategy from being in poverty. And so I think I caught that vision. And I also saw that the people in school that were the most successful were the ones that were doing things to make themselves visible. They were in the clubs, or they were, they were doing things. And I thought, well, I don't really know how to do all these things, but I'm going to put myself out there, even though it's scary, even though I could fail, but I'm not going to succeed in life if I just do nothing.
Yeah, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about what life was like in the 1950s and 60s, because I think in many ways, so many parallels to what we're experiencing today. Why don't you share a little bit about that time in history for you?
It was an interesting time. I mean, at the same time, I Love Lucy was coming out, right? The first hydrogen bomb was being detonated. The Jonas Salk was discovering the polio vaccine when polio was really challenging. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that racial segregation was unconstitutional in public schools, and that started the whole thing with Brown versus education. It was a time where people were fighting for change, and I didn't totally understand it. I didn't understand everything that was happening. Because in the 60s, is when Kennedy became president. And then, there was an assassination of him. I mean, civil rights with Martin Luther King were born. And it was so interesting because you were being told on one level, and I'm just going to speak as a woman of color, you were being told on one level to keep your head down and don't make waves and don't get in trouble. But you're watching where people are in the streets going, we're more than this. We deserve this. Stand up. And it was confusing. And yet it was planting seeds, a possibility of like, wow, well, what if I can be more? I mean, there was no way I would have known at that time what would have happened with women and people of color and laws and things. There was no way for me to know. But these people were way showers that were saying, now is the time to move out of slave mentality or being held hostage on some level, mental, emotional, physical level, and stand up for your rights. And it was like, wow, can we do that?
Is that kind of the time where you really found your voice, or was it before?
Oh no, it was starting to awaken. And I was starting to do things that were I would sing. I started to know that my singing impacted people. And so I would and so I was starting to do it, but I think I didn't totally. I masked my lack of confidence by being out in the public eye on some level. And I feel like it was the beginning of me saying, well, how can I show up in a way and create a life? Because I always wanted to travel. I always wanted to be on stages. I didn't know how, so I just did little bits at a time. So I think the 50s and the 60s were me putting my toe in the water and seeing how far I could get out there and if I could swim.
Well, you're not only swimming, man, you're doing Olympic strokes out there, so and I just am so just honored and impressed that we get to spend this time together. And in your book, you talk about how you're encouraging people to find times in their childhood where they stood up for themselves.
Mhm.
And I don't think a lot of people even think about that.
Yeah, I in the book I tell this story about um in the school that I went to, swimming lessons were mandatory. And for the girls of color, that was scary because our hair gets very wild when it gets wet. And so we would put on two swimming caps, so our hair didn't get wet and we wouldn't be made fun of. And on this particular day, the teacher had us diving. And when I dove in, the swimming cap came off and I was mortified. And the other black girls were like, oh, wow. And so I got out of the pool and I went to the teacher and I said, please, I only live 5 minutes away and I want to go home and fix my hair. And she goes, absolutely not. And I'm like whispering, no, you don't understand. If I don't go home and fix my hair, then they're going to make fun of me. And it's just not going to be for today. It's going to be ongoing. And she just turned around and walked away and said, this conversation is over. And I knew in that moment I was at a choice point. And so I went home. And I knew I was going to be in trouble. I wasn't going to be able to come back to school without my mother. And it was terrifying to tell my mother what I had done. And my mother, who was kind of a quiet person and kind of felt like a victim a lot, asked me, why did I make that choice? And I told her. And so she went back to school with me the next day and we're with the principal. And he's telling her that I was disobedient and he didn't like kids who were unruly. And my mother just listened. And then she quietly said, do you have any idea how hard it is to be a teenage colored girl? Do you have any idea how hard it is to try to fit in and not, my daughter's an A student and she's in the clubs and she does all of these things. So she's not disobedient, but she took care of herself. So whatever punishment you need to dole out, we'll just take it. And so he said, well, she's going to be after school for 2 weeks. And then if she does anything else, we're going to kick her out of school. My mother said, okay. So he handed us the pass and my mother walked me to my classroom. Now, and I was in awe because I couldn't believe my mother stood up like that. And when I got to the door, my mother said, I do not like disobedience in kids, but I want you to know I'm very proud of you. Because in that moment, you chose to take care of yourself so that you could feel that you could be respected. I mean, my I mean, even when I tell this story now, there's emotion in my eyes because it was the first moment that I got validated for standing up for myself.
And I love that story. And it's just so heart touching to have that moment with you and your mom just shared.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you feel that, as you have connected with people, that your work is really an invitation to not only, making sure that they find their voice, but feeling that they can do it authentically and with kindness?
Yeah. And to understand that even in those moments when you're feeling really challenged, you're feeling disappointed, you're feeling upset or even traumatized, that there's an opportunity in there for you to heal, to transform, to step out in ways you never thought about, and that there are angels, I call them angels, people all around you who want to see you succeed, who want to see you thrive. And if you just stop and ask, the universe will correspond with that request and bring you people and opportunities and ways for you to step into new arenas, to step onto new stages, to step into new relationships, to step into more powerful ways of being.
I know in the later 60s you moved to New York and and life changed.
Oh my God. It's a miracle I made it out of New York alive because I was such I was from Minneapolis and, I mean, I'd never been anywhere. I hadn't done anything. And I am working for Transworld Airlines and I'm a hostess and I'm flying and I just, I had this freedom that I'd never had before. And so I wanted to, drink and I wanted to smoke and I wanted to dress and I wanted to party. I wanted to do all these things. And at the very same time, Black power was rising. And so I'm like having the time of my life and at the same time being scared by all the stuff that's going on in the streets. And I'm like, okay, but you're out and you're traveling. This is part of your dream. And so I made a lot of mistakes, but I think because my intention was so clear and because you were talking about kindness, I have a kind heart and a loving nature. And I think the universe took care of me.
It sounds like it did. And I know you're very kind-hearted. And so that's actually one of the many things I appreciate about you and why I'm so excited we get to spend this time together. And it's just interesting as we look at these different ages in history, just how women, we're talking about women right now, but how women were allowed to do certain things and not allowed to do other things. Working was still kind of an iffy situation.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, women moving into C-suites was like almost unheard of at that time. And the women that were kind of busting through those kinds of barriers, they had to fight hard or they were called names or they were pushed back or mistreated, um and yet for me as a young woman to see that there were women out there fighting for rights and in politics and working for companies and being established authors and in the medical profession, I and poets, I mean, I was like, wow, these women are saying, you can do this. You can step out. And it was so incredible for me. And that's why I feel like today, women like you and me, we get to say, we're just an example, but we're showing you it's possible. What's your dream? What do you want to manifest? What vision wants to come through you?
Well, obviously, one of your visions was to travel and see the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, and I understand. I mean, you look like a model at this time, so it's like, hey, you're traveling, you're more independent. You have guys like throwing themselves at you.
Yeah.
How did you feel during that time?
I think the word is free. And I think it was adventurous. I felt like I was getting to explore new things and meet new people and walk into spaces where my family could not have dreamed of. At that time, being a flight attendant was quite prestigious. And so we were invited to parties, and we were invited to, events and to meet, impressive people. And I just feel like, wow, it was a time of, yeah, I think freedom is the word. I felt so free, and I felt so excited about what was next.
Have there been times in your life where you challenge yourself just to kind of get into remembering what life was like as it kind of swings from one section to another?
Yeah, there were a lot of times where I questioned choices I was making, what I was doing. Was this the right bridge to cross? Was this the right thing to say yes to? Was this the right relationship? But I really think that's a great part of the human journey, is that you get to question, and you get to go, oh, maybe that wasn't the right decision. Can I go here? I mean, I think that those moments, and sometimes I wasn't very kind to myself. I was kind of beating myself up of, what were you thinking? But I think some of the great parts was really about opening myself to new ways of expressing and stepping through new doorways.
Why do you find it's important for people to write down the things that have challenged them in their past?
To get real. A lot of times we want a Pollyanna-ish. We want to go, oh, well, that wasn't that bad. And, oh, well, that was then and this is now. But, everything that's ever happened to us is encoded in our physiology. And so I think writing down your challenges, you get to look at those things, and then you get to say, what did I choose there? What did I choose there? What would I do differently there? You get to look at it and see where you won, see where you were like, oh, that probably wasn't the best choice for me to make, and see where you absolutely began to flower and emerge.
It's just so remarkable the way how you've interwoven your story with events that happened and what life has been like. Because, I mean, it hasn't been that long ago that women had equal rights. I mean, it's kind of crazy to even say that.
Yeah, well, we were property until the early 1900s, which is astounding to me. And as we started to stand up for our rights, we got thrown in jail, we got beat up, we got cast out of relationships. I mean, it wasn't like they were saying, oh boy, here come the women, and that's still happening on the planet in many respects. And so I think that this is a time, of women emerging, bringing their light and their gifts and their caring and nurturing natures to the planet, because we're out of sync, we're out of balance.
Have there been times where in your personal life, and I know how you're probably going to answer to this a little bit, but where you have really had to step up who you are to really be able to show up for what you want?
Oh, many, you know. I say that relationships have been a path of discovery for me. And so there have been a lot of different things in relationships where I had to do that. And also in career, it's really interesting. I talk about in the book that I won Star Search and they handed me $100,000 on television. And it was great. It was celebratory. And 2 days later, everybody had gone home and I was depressed. And I was like, whoa, what is that? And so I called my friend and talked about this. And he said, you're always looking for what's next to prove yourself. I want you to walk around the house and say, I'm enough until you feel like you believe it. Well, 3 hours later, I was still crying because I couldn't get past the I am enough. And I think that was a moment where I said, I've got to do some work here. I've got to do some work to honor myself and stand up for myself and not need anybody else to validate me or approve of me, that who I am right now, today, is enough. And that was a turning point for me, that because I could say, yes, I mean, there are things I would like to achieve and goals I would like to achieve. But the truth is, it's like, can I love myself today? Can I honor myself today? Can I respect myself today? Can I have conscious boundaries today?
Well, I just congratulate you on that, because that's something that just about everyone deals with, that I'm not good enough, story. And it's one that can really affect people's lives if they don't work through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's why, there's so many gifts today. There are podcasts like this. There are books. There are workshops. There are counselors and coaches and teachers and healers. I mean, there's so much available for people. And so what I say is, it's like, you cannot do this alone. Find a place, find someone or something that can help you see yourself truly, how beautiful you are, how brilliant you are, how fabulous you are.
You have a quote in your book that I think has really just stuck with me. And it's, I believe that obstacles occur to invite us into a deeper understanding of our true calling and purpose. I mean, mic drop on that one. So what has led you to come to this realization?
When I started looking back at my life, especially when I was writing this book, I started to see that these obstacles would come up. And it was like the dark before the dawn. Each time this obstacle would come up, and then there would be some opportunity or some choice that I would make, or some gift that would come in, or some invitation that would come in. And I started to go, oh, wow, maybe this is a part of the cycle of life, that these challenges, because we can't get through this life without a challenge or an obstacle, that these obstacles, really are the opportunities for us to really see what's available, to see that we're not alone, to see that there are different choices that will give us different outcomes. I mean, I just feel like for me, I'm grateful for every single thing that's happened to me, because it brought me to this moment. Some things I wouldn't wish on other people, but I'm grateful because it's made me who I am today. And I guess I would say that to anybody listening. Everything that's happened to you has made you who you are today. You get to choose how you want to go forward, but giving thanks for what has brought you here, I think, is a gift.
I'd agree with you on that for sure. Just being able to be here, and I mean, there's so much to be grateful for. When we're looking to manifest what it is we want, how do we go about doing that? Because I know there's a lot of talk and doing it one way or doing it another way. What
Mhm.
would you suggest?
Well, the first thing I would say is pause. Really stop running, stop trying to create, stop trying to figure it out, and open to what lights you up. What are you passionate about? Write down the things that inspire you and ignite you, and then look at the ways in which you've sabotaged yourself, because those are the things you want to let go of so that these passion points can begin to grow and begin to blossom. And so I would say start with what you love and then start moving in the direction of your dreams and have accountability built in and have people support you that can hold the vision with you.
So when did this spiritual aspect start intertwining in your story as well? Because I know I know you as this great spiritual teacher, and so I'd love to hear when that started.
I grew up in a spiritual family. We were brought up African Methodist Episcopal. And my families, all the women in my families were kind of prophetic dreamers and stuff. So it was always there, but I always questioned dogma. I always questioned that there was only one way for you to connect with spirit, with God, universe, whatever you choose to call it. And so I think it was really in my 30s that I started exploring other possibilities, other religious paths, other spiritual paths, other spiritual teachers, because that whole thing that I spoke about earlier about interconnectivity, that I wanted to find out how that worked, how you could be brought up in one place, come up through a certain religion, be brought up in a certain way, and still find your way to universal principles. And so universal principles were exciting for me because it said, change your thinking, change your life, change the way you look at things and things will shift, change the way in which you operate and your brain will restructure and neural paths will change. That was exciting for me because it meant that I was a collaborator with the divine.
I love that. It's such a great way to look at how our lives come together. And, so let's say someone's manifesting and they're able to manifest their dream. What does that mean? Have they arrived and now they can just manifest everything? They're ready to teach people,
Oh yeah. Here's the hard part. There's no arrival, because when you get to where you are, there you are, and you still got stuff to learn and you still got ways to grow. But I think once you start to get that there's a way to manifest by changing your thinking and your ways of being and your behavior, then you start to understand it's a formula for success. That if you don't like something that's happening in your life, you get to hold the vision for something new, and then you get to take action, because you have to take action. The vision won't just reveal itself. You have to move into action in the ways in which you are looking at things, the ways in which you are reacting to things, the way in which you are making choices about things. You have to really think about that and start moving, because then the universe will sync up with you in ways that you can't imagine.
Do you feel that it's helpful for people to have either a community or a coach when it comes to manifesting? Because I know a lot of times, even myself, I can get in the weeds on a few things,
Oh, I think it's essential. I have a coach. Every coach I know has a coach. And community, you need to be in places where people recognize you. They see your gifts. It's one of the things I love about the women's groups that I work with. We honor each other. We support each other. One of the women in that was in my awe group, launched her book last week, and everybody showed up to support her launch. And when people are going through changes, people rally around them and say, you're not alone. You don't have to go through this alone. So I feel like community is a healing salve.
What do you think are some of the obstacles that people usually encounter as they're going through their journey and finding their voice?
Self-doubt, wanting other people to validate their ideas or tell them that they're enough or that they can do it. I think it's like not being consistent in their goals, saying I want to do something and then starting and then stopping, getting distracted. I think that consistency is important. And the other thing I think is like non-attachment. What you may be thinking may be not the highest and best for you or the vision that wants to unfold. What if you do the best that you can do? What if you show up? What if you're consistent and then you trust that the universe is going to manifest into form something that's spectacular for you?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. That's just such a great place to be when you have, the thought process that the universe is here working for you as opposed to something that's out to get you.
Absolutely. Conspiring for you in every single moment.
That's just beautiful. Are there some times when you've had some really difficult experiences when it comes to manifesting? And maybe you've had to kind of readjust what you're doing.
Well, this book is one of them. I was very excited about the book proposal, and my friend is a successful author at a Hay House, and we sent it in, and they said they really liked the idea and my proposal, and they asked me to tweak a couple of things, and then they were going to take it to the acquisition people, and they came back to me and they said, we really like your writing. We really like the idea, but we're going to say no because you don't have a big enough platform. And I want you to know in that moment, it struck something in me, that insecure little girl that was being told she wasn't enough, and to get her feet on the ground and get her head out of the clouds. And so it took me some inner work and work with my coach and to really some catharsis through writing to get that first of all, no publisher is my source. That if I'm to do this book, if I'm to get it out into the world, then all I have to do is listen and be obedient and write and continue to open myself up to be available. And so the publisher that I have today is perfect for me. And I'm so grateful. But I had to go through that, looking at that wound, that little wound was still there.
I think that's something that many writers go through. Have not to the extent where they're saying, "Hey, we love this. This is great," but not enough audience that you have. But I think authors get kind of stuck where they are kind of feeling like they get right into those old stories that feed into maybe negativity.
Yes, and questioning ourselves and doubting if the dream that lives within us, is possible. But that's the moment that you have to stop and you have to say, I'm here for a reason. What this calling, this thing in me, if it's in me, there's a delivery system for it.
So what are your final thoughts for our listeners when it comes to finding their voice?
Oh, listen, you are a masterpiece that is unfolding moment by moment. You're an unrepeatable imprint in this universe, on this planet. And you're here to bring your voice. You're here to bring your gifts. You're here to remember that you matter, that you're important, and that the stronger you are within yourself, the more you shine and the more you give other people the remembrance that there's possibilities for them.
That's so beautiful. Well, Cynthia, I love your work, and my goodness, you have such amazing things that you do. You've got some great books. I know you help a lot of people work through different processes, and you're such an inspirational teacher. Where can people connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about you?
Well, my website is cynthiajames.net, and the book website is doesmyvoicematter.com.
Well, Cynthia, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
I love being with you, Marianne.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Cynthia. It is always such an honor to spend time with you. You're one of my favorite people, and you provide such amazing light and inspiration in the world. Again, if you'd like to connect with Cynthia James, you can at her website, cynthiajames.net, for more information. There she has listed her upcoming events, including her newest program, Advanced Awareness Coaching, which offers depth, focus, and results for high-level business creatives. Cynthia also has several events coming up that you don't want to miss. So make sure to connect with her, join her newsletter, and become part of her community. Her book, Does My Voice Matter, is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, support our indie bookstores. I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.